Hey there everyone, AJ back again for the Mighty Gluestick channel. I make videos about Dungeons & Dragons lore full-time and have a collection of hundreds of monster ecology and strategy videos on my channel. If you like what I do, please consider subscribing as I upload at least twice a week. This one is a long time coming, thanks to a request from Dave of Nerdarchy years ago. This one is for you. This also marks the last video on my list of for completing the ecology for all the monsters in the Core Monster Manual for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. I just have a few devils, demons, dinosaurs, NPCs and animals to throw in there, but this week it's time to delve into the lore of the abominable snowman, the cold climate dire ape, the wild and furry tundra yeti, and the abominable yeti. Yeti are more bipedal than a gorilla and also much larger. They stand about 8 feet tall, and if I do the math, that would make them well over 850 pounds of thick hide, fur, muscle. They're barrel-chested and have long arms. They're also a lot more feral looking than a mountain gorilla, with claws on their fingers and toes that help them scale ice-covered terrain, teeth more suited to a mostly carnivorous diet, and lustrous fur that changes from white to light brown depending on the year, time of year or the general climate. The males often grow a set of goat-like horns on their head, and the tundra yeti have pale, bright blue eyes that seem to pulsate with some inner light and have a translucent membrane, a second eyelid a lot like that of a cat that allows them to even see in severe blizzards. The fur, a layer of fat under the skin and more mass in the torso are all adaptations of the species to extremely cold environments. They can be found mostly around Narfell, the spine of the world's mountains, Icewind Dale, the Great Glacier, and the Nouveau-Larond region there, as well as the Essen-Nouveau-Larond peaks. Not the Tutsas mountain chain though. This is home to the bizarre and enormous light blue-furred 20-foot tall Gargantua Yeti, who blend in with the ice floes all too scarily well and have quite a dense population in that area, but they're not listed in the monster manual at present. Yetis are not only favouring the cold environment, they actually require it to survive, as for whatever reason, these are cold-blooded creatures that can't survive in hot temperatures. Dragon Magazine 127, published in 1987, has a well-written article, an ecology article by Thomas Kiefer. This cemented a lot of the lore of the Yeti. For instance, these are ancient creatures, related to both primates and bears, dating back to before the age when the Quaggoths had a civilization on the supercontinent of Maruroboros, just before the Days of Thunder and the rise of the creator races. This is a time when Toril was warming up under a brand new sun. The frozen shadow epoch was over and the massive glaciers miles high were retreating to the poles across the entire planet. This was something like 40,000 years before the present age of Faerun. Now, if I can flex my biological science muscles for a second, when you raise your eyebrows at a species that is related to both bears and primates, it's not far-fetched at all. Apes are in the group Eurochontogliers, and bears are the Lauraceatheria, which is an awesome word. I think I might name the next elven druid or ranger that, perhaps even a green dragon. These two groups are more closely related to each other than other groups of placental mammals, and together constitute the combined group of Boreoeurotheria. Being a high magic world though, some supernatural adaptation to the extreme environment the species lived in was vital. The Shadow Epoch was an era when the nightmare primordial serpent Dendar swallowed the sun, so Toril was transformed into a snowball in space. The only things surviving either loved the cold or they died out completely. Yeti are cold-blooded, and much larger abominable Yeti can actually exhale cold so intense it creates a 30-foot cone of frigid air. Each creature caught in it has to make a DC 18 Constitution saving throw or take a massive 10d8 cold damage. Half of that, even if they make the saving throw. This is more than sufficient to freeze materials so suddenly and completely that they become super brittle. You can represent this effect to your players by describing the huge abominable Yeti shrieking like a punctured steam engine and the whole wooden palisade of a village wall lurching at the force of this breath weapon, a crackling sound as the wood freezes instantly, and then boom! The Yeti uses its strength of 24 and its enormous size to just sunder the wall like a siege engine, inflicting double damage from a reckless charge that just slams its whole body into the wall. Of course, they are just as capable of climbing over the wooden wall, and they have a climb speed of 40 feet per round, just as fast as their walking speed. The abominable Yeti don't live in the same family groups as the regular Yeti or the tundra Yeti. They are few in number and rarely congregate except to mate and when they are drawn together to hunt the same prey, large prey, such as when there is a migration of elk herds or they can smell the carcass of a large animal on the alpine winds. Yeti have a natural armor class of 12 and have dark leather skin under their white fur. This is not transparent fur like a polar bear. It is the best fur you could hope to have in a really cold environment. They have 6d10 plus 18 or between 24 and 78 with an average of 51 hit points. They have the same 40-foot walking speed and climbing speed as the huge abominable Yeti, which, considering that they are not bothered by deep snowdrifts and ice underfoot, is damn fast. So don't try to run from a Yeti unless the character has some sort of magical speed. They have a strength of 18, dexterity of 13, constitution of 16, a wisdom of 12, with an average advantage on wisdom checks related to their acute sense of smell. Low charisma, but a fairly good intelligence of 8 with the capacity to speak their own language. They are totally immune to cold, even magical cold. However, they have a phobia of fire. We'll talk more about that later. If they get threatened by open flames, they will have to overcome that fear, and if they actually burnt, the moment they take that damage, they're at disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks until the end of their next turn. In snow and ice, they are masters of their terrain, able to camouflage themselves with advantage on all stealth checks while in snowy environments in previous editions. This was invisible if they were unmoving in snow. There are also some mentions in the lore that they've been known to form some sort of alliance with white dragons, to the point where there are tales of Yeti riding white dragons into battle. There's also lore supporting the fact that their white dragons are their primary enemies, so it's conflicted. We don't know if Yeti ever had a more advanced state, a Yeti society or culture. It has been tens of thousands of years, and lots has risen and fallen across the world in the meantime. So who could say? There may be ancient ruins out there buried under the ruins of the giants who dominated all the northern continent for their long reign of Astoria. Yeti barely have any sort of culture now. They only raise their young for 2 years before the children are expected to be able to fend for themselves. This is brutal necessity in the frozen lands, and that means that the young Yeti learn very quickly how to hunt and eat whatever they can, which they spend all of their waking hours doing, as they have a tremendous growth rate. By the age of 5 years, they are an adult. If someone hopes to capture and train a Yeti, they absolutely have to do it before the Yeti reaches even the age of 3 years of age. So the window of opportunity is pretty narrow, and they've got an enormous food requirement as they grow to like 8 foot tall in 5 years. They can be domesticated, but can never be free to wander, as they will always follow their instincts to go off hunting for food, unless they have a constant supply of it, which poses as many problems as it solves. A well-managed, domesticated and trained Yeti can be very loyal, though they are intelligent creatures, but much like a big cat, they are predators, and you can never completely let your guard down around them. Yeti eat any animal they can digest, and they find humans very digestible indeed. They'll also eat their own kind without any form of remorse, and they are devoid of concepts like mercy or empathy in the wild, which they've never contributed to their survival in the frozen world, so they haven't evolved those emotional instincts. They have to be taught to emulate those sort of behaviours by a trainer who has raised them from a young cub. Wild Yeti are extremely dangerous. In previous editions, the traits of the Yeti have remained very consistent over the years. The adjustments made for 5th edition have retained the supernatural cold part of the Yeti, but have shifted entirely to this chilling effect and used it to replace a gaze attack, which was previously a supernatural fear attack, which was never particularly well explained. Aside from the pale crystal blue eyes and the faint pulsing light coming from them, the chilling gaze of the Yeti has a range of only 30 feet, so they tend to either wait and ambush their prey, or close in quickly and use it as soon as they can. They don't have any listing for it, but they are capable of hurling rocks and boulders. They are liable to do this mainly if they think a larger group of humanoids is too dangerous to attack at close range. So they will attempt to wound 1 or 2 of them with thrown rocks and let the environment work its magic on them until the opportunity pops up and they can pick off any vulnerable prey. They will always go for children, the weak, the old, and that means halflings and gnomes can expect to be targeted by Yeti with gusto. To the Yeti, a plump halfling is a ridiculously tempting target. They're basically Yeti bait. So they set off every single Yeti hunting instinct they have. If you were to design a Yeti chew toy, it would be a Hobbit plushie on a chain that smells like potatoes and rabbits. They close into 30-foot range, and the abominable Yeti will unleash its breath attack, after which you need to roll a d6 each round to see if it has recharged its supernatural coldness and can breathe a cone of cold out again. Tundra Yeti automatically use the gaze attack once every round that they are in range. The only question is what target it aims it at, and it doesn't have to be the opponent that it's facing in melee combat, and it certainly doesn't give a melee opponent any sort of advantage or free attack against it when it uses its gaze attack against a target 30 feet away. Anyone who can see the Yeti within that range, or anyone the Yeti can see within that range, must make a DC 13 Constitution saving throw, or for the huge abominable Yeti it is DC 18 to save, or the victim will take 3d6 cold damage for the Tundra Yeti, or 66 cold damage for the abominable Yeti, and then be paralyzed for up to 1 minute. So this is a cold effect. It's a gaze effect, but it doesn't require the Yeti to meet the gaze of the opponent. It just means that the Yeti has to be able to see it. The opponent could be blind, it will still happen. A paralyzed creature can't take any actions or reactions, can't move, can't speak, fails any strength or dexterity saving throws. All attacks against it have advantage, and any that hit will be automatic critical hits if the attacker is within 5 feet of them. I also allow attackers who have reach attacks to do that as well, but that's just my DM's common sense. It's not strictly rules as written. In a nutshell, being paralyzed in close proximity to a Yeti is a very, very bad situation. It's bad news. Luckily, the victim gets to make another saving throw on each of their turns. I should point out this is at the end of their turn, so they don't just leap to their feet with a hearty what ho. They spend the round in a lot of pain, flopping around on the ground as they try to get some sort of functional response from their traumatized nervous system. They're in shock. The great news is, once a character makes the saving throw against the chilling gaze and is successful, they are immune to any further chilling gaze attacks from that breed of Yeti. So all of the Yetis in that group. And thankfully, the abominable Yeti tend not to attack alongside Tundra Yeti in the wild. Otherwise it gets very deadly very fast. Still, there is a chance that you could run into some domesticated Yeti of both types, trained to attack together. Also, it's very important to remember that this immunity to further gaze attacks only lasts for 1 hour, and the Yeti know that. One thing that doesn't make a lot of sense to me is that the cold breath of the abominable Yeti has no paralysis effect. What are your thoughts on that one? Along with the gaze, they make 2 claw attacks. For the Tundra Yeti, as a challenge rating 3 creature, it is +6 to hit, has a 5-foot reach and does 1d6 plus 4 slashing damage, plus 1d6 cold damage for each swipe. The abominable Yeti is a challenge rating 9 creature and is +11 to hit, still only has a reach of 5 foot, which is a bit weird for a huge creature, and does 2d6 plus 7 slashing damage, plus 2d6 cold damage with each claw swipe. The claws are not retractable and are a lot like a bear claws, leaving quite a distinct Yeti footprint in alpine snow. And just thinking about it, it doesn't make a lot of sense that a huge abominable Yeti doesn't have some sort of a grapple attack and have a cold aura to it, so if you're in close proximity to it, it would be freezing you from its intensely cold body temperature. That's certainly something that I might think about homebrewing. They hunt mostly during the day. They have 60-foot dark vision and do venture into alpine caves all the time in search of prey. They're constantly hunting, making them quite a threat to cave bear and crag cat cubs. They will absolutely demolish any tribe of goblins that fails to find a deep enough cave network or deep ruin to inhabit in the mountains, and the orcs that inhabit the frozen lands are always keeping their eyes peeled for suspiciously mobile mounds of snow. The goblinoids and orcs will quickly light every torch and stack of flammable material they have at the first sign of a Yeti attack, as fire and heat are the best defense against them, really. Yeti hate fire, it scares them, they avoid it. It's not just effective when they get hurt by it, they don't want to get burned and will stay away from it. They're not stupid though, and will simply throw huge snowballs at any fire that they see. The abominable Yeti will direct that cone of freezing breath directly at the largest source of fire near them, just like a fire extinguisher. It's quite effective, and that will be their first mode of attack when they encounter those of you who are carrying torches in the mountains for some reason. That's the hidden weapon of the Yeti, really. It's the fact that they are much smarter than your average mountain predator. They are as smart as an adult white dragon, which is not saying much, but an abominable Yeti is actually smarter than an adult white dragon, so give them clever tactics. These things hunt humanoids. They know how to draw them into encounter areas that prey on the lack of adaptation to the cold and rough terrain. The Yeti will wait for them to cross an ice-covered river or pond, for instance, and smash the ice out from under them with rocks, for instance. I mean, they're immune to cold. They're not bothered. They will deliberately set off avalanches just to race in afterwards and pick off targets, or happily dig up the bodies to eat later. They will perch on overhanging mountain ledges and drop large razor-sharp icicles down on player characters, hooting, growling, and pounding their chests to taunt and jeer at the characters, because they know that angry humanoids make stupid mistakes, and might even break from the group to chase the Yeti right into the clutches of an ambush. Yetis spread out and hunt for smaller game on their own, but they will always congregate to hunt larger or more dangerous prey, and humanoids are among their most dangerous prey. When food is scarce, that is when they will turn their icy blue eyes onto the bordering towns and villages of civilized races around the mountains. And that, my friends, is the last on my list, more or less, of the core monster manual for 5th edition. I'll now assemble an A to Z playlist and get back to my usual somewhat chaotic style of covering whatever strikes my fancy and the various other monster manuals, as well as the many requested videos I have to get done for all of you, which I'm more than happy to do so, and more on the comprehensive series on every demon type ever created for the game, and updates for my earliest videos with much better audio, production quality, and more in-depth research. As for right now, I'm going to go and have a celebratory beverage and a snack. All this talk of hungry primates has given me a primal urge to hunt and kill a wild grilled cheese sandwich. Please hit the like button if you made it this far, subscribe if you like what I do, check out my Patreon for some exclusive content and all the full scripts for these videos, buy some merchandise, wear your geek with pride, check out Patron Blades for a mighty smooth shave if you're hairy like a Yeti, and as always, thanks for listening, and I'll be back with more for you very soon.